These are the title cards of the Shochiku Film Company, one of the very oldest production studios in Japan. From the birth of film to today, Shochiku is credited with many of world cinema's most acclaimed works. If you go searching for a pre-war Japanese film, one that's really stood the test of time, you're likely to see one of these Shochiku insignias stamped right up front. But Shochiku remains underrepresented in historical discussions of innovative film studios. It is more than a nice logo with some pretty mountains. Diving into the history of this important company, we'll see Shochiku is at the vanguard of many key moments in the development of the film medium. We'll see that the story of this company in the early formative period of world cinema has a lot to show about how economic, technological, and social forces intersect in filmmaking. The story of Shochiku begins in 1895, and not with film, but with kabuki. Business partners Otani Takajiro and Shirai Matsujiro enter into the field of entertainment through theater promotion in Kyoto. In 1906, they put on their first production of kabuki at the Nakaza Theater in Osaka. Kabuki is a form of traditional Japanese drama, consisting of plays blending music and dance with ornate costuming and makeup. In the 1910s, the partnership begins buying theaters outright for their productions, and the Shochiku Company is formed in earnest. Shochiku organized kabuki for commercial success, staging lavish all-star productions of famous scenes. As Japan enters the 1920s, a greater influx of foreign films enter the market, which Shochiku import and screen. The company produces its first film in 1920, a silent short titled Shima no Onna, or Island Woman. With this film, Shochiku is considered the first studio to bring the star system to Japan, as the film stars popular actress Yoshiko Kawada, who contributed to the early success of this new film venture. To compete with popular action-packed jidaigeki or period piece films, Shochiku begins producing urban dramas that reflect their present-day middle-class audience more directly. With this shift, we see how filmmaking adapts to meet the demands of the market and find its audience. Actress Kanuyo Tanaka contributes hugely to the popularity of this genre. She would later direct her own films in the 1950s, the second woman in Japan to do so. Crucially, an important filmmaker to emerge from the studio in this period is Yasujiro Ozu. Scholarly consensus places Ozu as one of the first Japanese directors considered now an auteur, a filmmaker whose unique style makes an imprint on all their work, often with consistent themes. Many of Ozu's films, for example, can be identified by the use of a low, stationary camera. His compositions are often symmetrical, and the actors frequently deliver dialogue down the lens of the camera in shot-countershot exchanges between characters. You'll find many of his stories focus on family dynamics, or the passage of time leaving the elderly behind. His time at Shochiku spans from the late 20s to his final film, An Autumn Afternoon, in 1962. Ozu's work helped cement Shochiku as a powerful force in the industry, achieving domestic popularity and establishing the company in the international art house market. In her piece on Ozu's influence for a 1982 retrospective, writer Kathy Geist says, Ozu's films are a major monument in the history of art. Their visual brilliance, wit, and concentration are the work of a consummate artist with more than a touch of genius. Contextualizing his output, in its style and production, has shown the importance of Shochiku on the acclaim of Japanese art house cinema. But, back in 1931, the introduction of sound to Japanese filmmaking changes everything. Shochiku releases the first Japanese talkie with The Neighbor's Wife in mind. Throughout the 30s, the studio shifts to this new mode of production for its artistic potential and the economic demand of this technology. Several acclaimed films come from this transitional period, such as the slapstick comedy I Was Born But, or romantic and family melodramas like Mr. Thank You and The Only Son. With the onset of World War II, Shochiku transitions into the making of propaganda to conform with government policy around film production. This includes the first feature-length animated film created in Japan, Momotaro Sacred Sailors, made in 1944 and released at the beginning of 1945. The Japanese forces are depicted as cute, cuddly animals. Here, the Animal Army fights against British forces. This shift to wartime propaganda from mass-market comedy and melodrama shows the impact of global conflict on the national film industry. Social forces and government pressures impact the kinds of films allowed to be produced and what finds domestic success. Shochiku still exists today, but the important contributions the company had to early Japanese cinema deserve great renown. In the transition to sound, the output of auteur art house cinema, and even in the nation's propaganda. Shochiku represents a fascinating case study in the economic and artistic forces that drive a studio to success and into film history.